Welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Each week, we bring you discussions with educators on how they use blended, self-paced, and mastery-based learning to better serve their students. We believe teachers learn best from each other, so this is our way of lifting up the voices of leaders and innovators in our community. This is the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 213 of the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. My name is Toni Rose, Deanna, and they, them pronouns, a designated hype person here at MCP, and I am joined today by this rock star elementary school teacher, Drea Siford. Welcome, Drea.
Hello. Yes. And that's, like I said at the very beginning, I just had a Friday, and these were like some of the discussions that I was having with my students, like that we can't take forever, on this, and reminding them that today was a deadline and that we didn't make it, so I gave them like one more day, and then it's like a for sure. But, I don't know. I'm very fluid with it. You know what I mean? Because like for me, in the fourth grade, and also because, 75 to 80% of my students are multilingual learners, like I'm always like, I'll say this like to my admin, and luckily I have like cool admin that I can be like real with, is like I can be on pace or I can have them learn. And like sometimes I can't do both. And now again, this is my third year of full implementation. And that very first year, the data showed it. That very first year. Like I said, my classroom is 75 to 80% multilingual learners. And so even though I am not a English development teacher, like an English and ELD teacher, I still feel responsible for that, especially because I'm a language arts teacher, and I'm teaching so closely with my English language development teacher that like I look at the WIDA scores and I care about the WIDA scores, and that very first year we noticed a huge difference in our WIDA scores that very first year. And then in addition, my MCAP scores were better than they'd ever been.
Oh my gosh. And that's the first year that you implemented.
Yes. And then I saw the same thing again last year. I'm upfront with people, like this is work. You know what I mean? On the front end, this is a lot of work. And even my third year in, it's still a lot of work. It's not, it's less work than it was the first year or the second year, but it's still a lot of work. But like my, thinking behind that is like, it was a lot of work before too. And for me, it was inefficient and it wasn't working. But now it's still a lot of work, but it's working better. Could it be better? Absolutely. It always could be. You know what I mean? But like it is better. And so I don't mind putting in the extra work then. So I think that's usually to me kind of what like some teachers are always hesitant. Like they can tell that work is going to go into this, and I don't blame them, like we already have a lot on our plates. So I think that's the biggest hurdle always for me to try to get people over.
Yeah. And that's what I've been hearing often is when students complain about game board, the self-pacing, right? And then they go back to whole group and then they go, no. Actually, I don't want that.
So it's always like a good reminder, for me this time of year for the kids who aren't still fully on board. And then I'm like, okay, we're going to do whole group for a little bit. And then they're just like, wait a second. I don't know if I like this anymore.
Yeah. And I like that you're mixing it up, right? Because it doesn't mean that you have to self-pace the entire time either. So, and we don't get rid of whole group at all. It's just like our whole group is just so much more intentional.
Yeah. There's places for all the different models and types of teaching. And I always just look at it as a tool in my belt, and like, I'm going to use whatever tool is best for the job.
And he was like, what teacher do you hear say they want to move up with their students? And I was like, gosh, me.
One of these years, just because I want to see like what it's like, and I want to get the data for what it's like with a group of kids to hit the ground running, because there is like some time lost to like learning how to implement. And so like if you don't have teachers in grades younger than you that are already doing this, there is some like heavy lifting for you to do to get them used to this idea. And there's like some unlearning for them to do as well. And that can be painful sometimes, because like it's them going from a very like passive form of learning to a much more active form of learning. And there's a mindset change for them.
You brought up the blue signs that said, or you brought up level up. And when I went into your classroom and observed you, like I already knew you were a rock star teacher based on like all of my colleagues saying that you were. And so it was really great to see you in action, or rather see the students in action. And so as I was walking around, there were blue signs that said level up. Can you tell us more about that?
So I tried to like gamify everything as much as possible. So like their game board, when they get to like a quote unquote like mastery check, I call them level ups, because like that's like what it is like in a video game, right? They level up, like they understand that language as fourth graders. They understand what it means to level up. And so when they do level up, they have these little signs that when they're working on a mastery check, they have like little signs that say level up on them that they put on their desk so that other people know not to talk to them. And also so that I can see that that's what they're doing, so that like if a student is talking to them, I can kind of be like, hey, we're not supposed to do that right now.
Yeah. And it's a great visual thing for you, like you said, right? And so this is just kind of saying like, listeners, Drea didn't have a mastery check space where students got up and took their mastery checks in that corner or a setup in the classroom. It was just, I was walking around and there were a couple of students with the level up signs. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, they're doing like something really cool. And I mean, mastery checks are cool.
Hey there, listeners. This is Zach. Just got some quick announcements for you. Want to start building your own modern classroom? Sign up for our virtual summer mentorship program from June 23rd to July 27th. Work with one of our expert educators to build materials for your own classroom. We have scholarships all over the country, so you can enroll for free if you teach in Chicago, Alabama, Oakland, LA, Minnesota, and more. To see if there's an opportunity for you, check out modernclassrooms.org/apply now. That's modernclassrooms.org/apply-now. And second, Toni Rose and I are planning out the upcoming season of this podcast, and we would love to hear from students. So if you're listening to this podcast and you have a student that you would like to elevate their voice and have them come on the podcast and tell their story, it could be a student at any level of school, elementary, middle, high, college, adult education. The student experience is so central to a modern classroom, and we would love to hear from more students. So please pitch your student stories to us. You can email us at podcast@modernclassrooms.org. Of course, that link is in the show notes. And pitch your student story to us. We would love to see if we can get more students on the podcast. But let's get back into this shortcast. I cut out a lot of really great stuff to keep this shortcast short. So go and listen to the full episode if you want some more gems from Drea.
Playing a game, and it's like learning. And that's like one of the things that I really love about it is that like for fourth graders, especially, it makes their learning this very tangible thing on the game board that they can see. They can see that they're doing these things to get to this place where then they can prove what they know. And if they can prove what they know, then, then they level up and then they get to go learn something new. They're on a new mission, or a new task, a new, fight the dragon, whatever it is. And, that's just like the way their brains think.
Your student, every single student had a QR code. And they would just like bring up the QR code and put it in front of the camera. And then they were able to access their learning materials that way.
Well, that just like, that's clever. That's the clever login. So Clever gives like QR codes like that way, so that they can like log in to their computers basically. So like they could have like, and because I have like fourth graders with varying abilities, like some of them use QR codes and some of them like know their passwords, and so they'll log in that way. Although today I said, you're in the fourth grade now, we got to start like remembering passwords and like, what our email addresses are. So we had a little like, let's see who can remember their email address and log in passwords today. And they were all very proud to show me that like 90% of them are there now. So QR codes might be going. Although it's still good like for if I need them to log into like say a quizzes or something like that, like to use like QR codes that way. And I just learned this from my current ESOL like co-teacher, that like I can print those QR codes onto stickers that I can then like put on to like index cards and stuff.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. And it's even better with your explanation too, Drea, of like, no, that was it was an option.
There's plenty of other lessons that I know that only my like most proficient students are going to get to that lesson. And they're getting that extension that they need. And they don't feel like they're doing extra work.
Right. Right. And that's the thing that I've been telling educators too, Drea, is like, hey, you have permission to not label any of your lessons, any of your tasks. If you don't want students to skip the should do and aspire to do, don't label them. Everything is a must do. And then you have those one-on-one conversations, because that's still really personalizing learning, right? It's like, oh yeah, cool. I know that the student's able to do this right now. Keep going. I know that the student will probably really struggle and may take a lot of time. We're going to pause on that real quick, right? Yeah. And I also just wanted to point out too, that just because some students are skipping lessons doesn't mean that our expectations are lower, right? Like that's not what it means at all, at all. It just means that we are creating this space where it's all the must do assignments that will really help them, right? Master the concepts that we really want them to know. And yes, we would like for all of our students to do all of the things. And in reality, it's just not real. It's not possible. I mean, especially as adults, right? Like I would love to do all the things. I don't have the energy or the knowledge or the capacity or the ability to do all of the things. And so again, just keeping in mind too, that it does not mean you're lowering your expectations. It just means that you are just creating this space where students have the time to master the skills that they need to master at that time.
Exactly. Some kids don't need to see me. They got it. And they're okay with that. They'll come and see me when they need me. But some kids might need to sit with me for the entire day. And, that's just where it is. That's where we are.
Right. And that's also okay.
And yeah, exactly. But I feel like everybody's getting what they need.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said about being intentional with it, right? There's a lot more intentionality behind it. And it's also data informed, because you're looking at the mastery checks, you're looking at, what they're struggling with, their misconceptions, and you can do it right away. It's not like, oh, last week we did this thing and now I'm going to pull y'all in. Because I know that that's typically what happens, right? It's like a very delayed process of pulling students out based on like the mastery checks or the formative assessments that they did not master.
Yeah, this is a lot of catching misconceptions in the moment of misconception and correcting it right away. For some students, yes, I need them to write that sentence. And for some students, it might be like, here's 3 choices. Which one? And I'm reading those 3 choices to them. And then they're pointing to the one that it is. Because again, I have students that have just arrived into this country to students who have grown up here their entire lives and only know one language, so it's a big variety in my classroom.
Yes. I mean, like you said, very much individualized, personalized, like all of these things so students can feel successful in their learning journey. And that's really what we want for our students to feel. They want to feel good. They want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they can actually do the stuff that you're asking them to do. So I love that.
Thank you so much for listening. You can find links to topics and tools we discussed in our show notes for this episode. And remember, you can learn more about our work at www.modernclassrooms.org, and you can learn the essentials of our model through our free course at learn.modernclassrooms.org. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at modernclassproj, that's Proj. We are so appreciative of all you do for students and schools. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday with another episode of the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.